Hi everyone, welcome back in our Clear Home Learning. Today on Wednesday, 19th of August 2020. How do you do? We hope you are safe and healthy always. Today we are having another IELTS section which is speaking. For some people, speaking is really hard. Is it? By having some tips and practices that we are going to discuss today, speaking will not be a nightmare anymore for everyone. Let's go with the next slides and discuss together. IELTS speaking task consists of a face-to-face interview with the examiner. The examiner will lead the candidate through the three parts of the task. The first one is part 1. It is an introduction and interview. So the examiner later on will give you some questions and you are going to have interview with him or her. Part 2 is an individual long term when the candidate speaks for 1 or 2 minutes on a particular topic. The examiner will give you a topic card and you have to explain the topic in 1 or 2 minutes. It is part 3, the last. It is a two-way discussion thematically linked to the individual long term. So part 3 has the same topic with part 2. This interview will last for approximately 11 to 14 minutes and the examiner will record your interview. Next is the band descriptor. So before we go deeper, we will check on how you will be assessed. In speaking, the examiner will assess you based on 4 criteria. The first one is your fluency and coherence. Fluency and coherence are talking about how fluent you are in responding the questions given. Also, it defines your content, whether it relates to the prompts or not. The second criteria is lexical resource. It scores the vocabulary used in your speaking. The more uncommon words used, the better score you get. So you need to practice more on the vocabulary. The third one is grammatical range and accuracy. English cannot be separated from grammar. Every single sentence you make should have correct grammar and context. Make sure it is accurate as well. For example, when you are talking about your experience, you have to use past tense. Or while you are explaining about your dream, you may use your future tense. The last one is pronunciation. Since it is speaking we are talking about, absolutely pronunciation is assessed. Have a good and fluent pronunciation will help you gaining higher score. Here is the band descriptor for speaking. Each band descriptor explains the stage clearly. Here you can see on the first column it has fluency and coherence, the second has lexical resource, the third has grammatical range and accuracy, and the last column has pronunciation. You can also get the PDF on your own by clicking the link provided next to it. IELTS Speaking Part 1. IELTS Speaking Part 1, the introduction and interview. Here, the Part 1 lasts for 4 to 5 minutes and will begin with the introduction. In the introduction, the examiner will introduce him or herself, will also ask your name and ask you to show your identity card. The examiner then asks a number of questions about familiar topics such as your studies, your work, hobbies, interests, and others. So here we have some tips for you while doing your task. The first one is know what to expect. Before part 1 begins, there are 4 things that will happen. The examiner will introduce themselves and ask you what your name is. The examiner then asks you, for example, what can I call you? With simply asking for your nickname. They will then ask you where you are from, and finally, the examiner will ask you to see your identification. The second tip is creating a good first impression. So, if the candidate smile, be friendly, and give the examiner good eye contact, will they have a higher mark? The answer is no and yes. There is nothing in the marking criteria which says that being nice or looking the examiner in the eye will improve your grade. However, being confident helps you because it will have an effect on your answers. Number three is pretend you're interested in the questions. Let's face it, most IELTS questions are really boring. If you listen to someone answer a boring question, you will notice one thing. Their voice is monotone. For example, it doesn't go up or down in pitch at all. It sounds very flat. So if you speak like this, you will get a lower mark for pronunciation because one of the crucial factors, you will be tested on your intonation as well. Number four is extend your answers. There is no set amount of words or sentences that you will use in part one. So they shouldn't be too short because you want to show the examiner that you can actually use English. So I'm a student, for example, is not really long enough. However, they should not be too long either because part one is on familiar topic, for example, family, work, hobbies, and etc. That you don't normally talk for 2 minutes when someone asks you where you are from. So you have to uh, please don't be too short or please don't be too long. Okay. Number five is practice. Absolutely. It is a very bad idea to prepare memorized answers before your speaking test. But because part one is very predictable, you should practice more. Try recording yourself or listen back and think about the following questions. For example, could you improve the vocabulary? Or did you make any grammar mistakes that could be fixed? Or did you speak fluently? Or did you speak at an unnatural speed? How was your intonation? Or did you extend your answer enough? Or did you speak clearly? Okay, you may notice those things and try again and keep practicing until you are really confident about talking about the common topics. That's all the tips. Now we are going to have some tones to be avoided in the next slide. You should avoid. Number one is don't give yes or no answer only. Giving yes or no answers doesn't allow the examiner to judge your ability and you will get a low mark no matter how good your English is. Some people give yes or no answers because they are very nervous and they want the test to be over as soon as possible. This is probably because many of the questions would naturally lead to a yes or no answer. But you must remember that you are in the test and you have to show the examiner how good your English is. The second is go off topic. Do not go off the topic. Some students try to tell their life story or the entire history of their hometown when they are asked their name and where they are from. Remember that these are very simple questions. And if you have given more than 3 to 4 sentences, you are probably giving irrelevant details. Next situation is don't give no answer. Okay, you have answered the question. You don't get to choose the question. And if you don't know the answer to a question or you simply don't like the question, you don't have any choice. You must answer it. Okay? Remember that part one is about you. There will be no question you don't understand because they will all be about you. So please give answer to the question. Number four, speak very quietly. Okay? Do not speak very quietly. This is one of the most annoying things for the examiner because no matter how good your English is, if the examiner cannot hear you, they cannot give you a high score. Remember that. This has a lot to do with confidence and shyness. Make sure that you are not talking to the floor and speak a little louder than normally. The examiner will also be recording the task, so it has to be loud enough for the recording device to pick up your voice. Try recording yourself and play it back. If you can't hear yourself clearly, then you need to increase the volume of your voice a little more. The last situation, do not be a perfectionist. Okay? The examiner knows that you are speaking in a non-native language and doesn't expect perfection. Even people who get a 9, pen 9, make small mistakes, and people who get pen 7 or 8 make quite a few mistakes. Speak as naturally as possible with a focus on speaking at a natural speed and clear pronunciation, and the grammar and also vocabulary will look after itself. So for today's home learning task, make sure you have watched the explanation video. Try to understand on each point delivered. And for today, there will be a speaking part 1 quiz in your Schoology account. So after having the video, you may go to your Schoology account and to the quiz there. There are some questions that you need to answer. So enjoy your home learning today. That's the end of part 1 in IELTS speaking tasks. See you on part 2 in the next meeting. Have a nice day all. God bless you. Bye.